When Annie called, her voice trembling on the phone, the last thing I expected her to say was that she was pregnant. We'd only been dating a couple of months, and while I liked her, I knew deep down I wasn't ready for fatherhood, let alone marriage. But with pressure mounting, and perhaps a bit of panic mixed with guilt, I did what I thought was the honorable thing. I married her. From the start, though, something didn't feel right. I wasn't happy. I felt like I had so much more life to live, more to discover, more to build. But there I was, trapped in a role I hadn't chosen freely, playing the part of a husband I wasn't ready to be. Not long into our marriage, Annie began acting suspicious. She told me she had doctor's appointments, but my gut told me something was off. So I quietly followed her, and sure enough, she never made it to any clinic. Instead, she'd spend hours at cafes with friends, laughing, sipping coffee, and living carefree, as though nothing in her world had changed. I confided in my dad, unsure whether I was being paranoid or just bitter. He opened my eyes with painful clarity. I had a good job, I looked decent, I had money. Women noticed. And Annie, he believed, had trapped me, using a pregnancy to secure a life she couldn't have gotten otherwise. At first, I didn't want to believe it. But the more I watched, the clearer it became. She wasn't committed to the marriage, she was committed to the lifestyle. A few more weeks of observation confirmed everything I needed to know, and I filed for divorce. It wasn't easy. No man wants to admit he was manipulated. But the experience reshaped me. From that point on, I made a vow to myself. I would never again let someone love me for what I had, only for who I was. I started downplaying my income, driving modest cars, dressing simply, and keeping my personal life under wraps. I wasn't trying to be bitter, I was just trying to protect myself. I needed to know that the next woman I opened my heart to would see me, not my wallet. That experience with Annie left a scar, no doubt. But it also left a lesson, a hard-earned one. Love built on deception is never sustainable. Trust, honesty, and mutual respect are the only foundations that matter. I lost time, energy, and peace in that short marriage. But what I gained was wisdom. And that wisdom would shape every decision I made moving forward, especially when it came to love. After the painful breakup with Annie, I spent years rebuilding not just my confidence, but my ability to trust. I dated casually, always keeping my guard up, never revealing too much about my lifestyle or income. I wore simplicity like armor, avoiding anything that might attract someone more interested in my wallet than my heart. That's why, when I met Natalie, everything felt refreshingly different. She was only 20, bright, curious, and completely unaware of who I was or what I did for a living. That anonymity made her all the more genuine in my eyes. She wasn't dazzled by status or success. She liked me for me, or at least, that's what I hoped. At first, I played it cool. I didn't rush anything. But the more we talked, the more I realized how easy it was to be around her. She was down to earth, laughed at my jokes, and had this youthful honesty that was both refreshing and disarming. I found myself looking forward to every conversation, every date, and every moment we shared. Slowly but surely, I started letting my guard down, and without even realizing it, I fell hard. Eventually, I proposed. I had it all planned, simple, heartfelt, nothing flashy. But to my surprise, Natalie said no. She wasn't angry or cruel, just honest. She told me she was too young to settle down, that she had dreams to explore, and wasn't ready to be someone's wife just yet. Most guys might have backed away, nursed their pride, and moved on. But not me. Her honesty only drew me in further. I admired her independence, her unwillingness to commit just because it was expected. I knew she was worth the wait. Over time, I kept showing her how serious I was. I introduced her to my real self, step by step. I wasn't manipulative or forceful, but yes, I hoped she'd see I could offer stability, love, and a future. I started bringing up the idea of kids, subtly. I figured maybe starting a family would bring us closer, make her see that we were already building something real. Looking back, I know that was selfish. But in my mind, I had found the one, and I didn't want to lose her. Then, a couple of months later, it happened. Natalie found out she was pregnant. She was overwhelmed, anxious, and visibly shaken. Motherhood was something she had pushed far into the future, not something she expected at 20. But this time, she didn't run. She agreed to marry me. I introduced her to my father and the rest of my family, and everyone loved her. I truly believed I'd made it. I'd finally found the kind of love I had always searched for. We moved into my house, and for the first time, I allowed myself to stop hiding my success. I showered her with love, comfort, and support. We named our daughter Angela, and for a while, life felt perfect. But looking back now, it was only the calm before the storm. The first few years with Natalie felt like a dream come true. Our daughter, Angela, was a source of endless joy, and I had finally let go of the insecurities from my past. Natalie seemed happy too, grateful even. I gave her everything I could, a beautiful home, stability, affection, and freedom. But once Angela turned 3 and Natalie decided to return to work, something began to shift. It started subtly, a change in her wardrobe, bolder makeup, a new hairstyle. Then it became more obvious. She started going out more often with her girlfriends, attending social events she never cared about before. She even joined a gym and quickly got into incredible shape. Motherhood had only enhanced her appearance, and now she carried herself with a new, almost intimidating confidence. At first, I told myself this was normal, part of her reclaiming her identity after motherhood. But there was something different in her energy, especially when she was around me. The warmth had cooled. She was often tired, distant, or emotionally unavailable, especially in the bedroom. When I asked what was wrong, she always brushed it off with generic excuses. She was stressed, tired, or just not in the mood. But her words felt rehearsed, almost like they'd been practiced in front of a mirror. Then came the phone. Natalie had always been fairly open with her device, but suddenly she became obsessive. It was always in her hand or within reach. She started setting passwords, taking it with her into the bathroom, and silencing notifications. Every time I casually asked who was texting her, she'd quickly say it was her mom, her dad, or some vague coworker. If I reached for her phone, even as a joke, she would snatch it back like it held state secrets. That's when the uneasy feeling in my gut turned into something more, suspicion. I didn't want to believe she was cheating. After everything we'd been through, after the trust I'd given her so freely, it felt impossible. But the signs were there, and they were piling up. I didn't have concrete proof, and I didn't want to accuse her without it. So I started paying closer attention, watching patterns, asking questions, quietly collecting information. But even after a full month, I found nothing definitive. No names, no messages, no sightings. Just one fact: she had changed, and something was being hidden. Still, the secrecy around her phone haunted me. I knew something was inside it, something she didn't want me to see. That phone had become the final wall between us, and I knew that, somehow, it held the key to whatever truth I wasn't ready to face. The tension grew quietly, like a storm gathering in the distance. I wasn't sure when or how it would break, but deep inside, I knew it was coming. Everything finally unraveled on the night of our friend's wedding. Natalie and I had been invited as guests, and it was meant to be a fun evening: dancing, laughter, good food, and maybe a chance to reconnect. But Natalie drank too much. Far too much. As the night went on, she grew louder, sloppier, and completely unaware of how she was presenting herself. I watched in quiet discomfort, trying to keep my composure while she spun around on the dance floor, slurring her words and clinging to friends. By the time I got her into the car and headed home, she could barely sit upright, babbling nonsense between hiccups and giggles. I chalked it up to too much wine, but something about her behavior struck me differently, almost like she was carrying a weight she wanted to unload. When we got home, I helped her undress and guided her into the shower. She was a mess, barely able to stand. Afterward, as we laid in bed, she began mumbling affectionate things, calling me a great husband and father, saying I deserved better. Her words were oddly tender, but laced with guilt. Then she whispered, "I don't deserve you." That one sentence hit me like a brick. I tried to get her to explain, but she was too far gone to string together a full thought. She eventually passed out, leaving me lying next to her, eyes wide open, heart pounding. That was the moment I knew I had to see the truth. With her asleep, I quietly reached for her phone. Unlocked. For the first time in weeks, I had access. My hands shook as I opened her messaging app, already dreading what I might find. But nothing could have prepared me for what I saw: over 100 messages from someone named Mariah. Each message was more intimate than the last, filled with affection, sexual innuendos, and confessions of love. They spoke of meetings, secret moments, stolen kisses. And worst of all, they had all taken place in my home. I scrolled, numb, as my world crumbled with every word. This wasn't just flirtation. This was a full-blown affair, one that had been going on for 2 months right under my nose. I didn't wake her. What was the point? I stared at her sleeping form and wondered how she could lie beside me every night with that level of deceit in her heart. The rest of the night, I didn't sleep. I just read and reread the messages, connecting every behavioral change, every excuse, every cold night in bed. It all made sense now. Why she sent me and our daughter on random trips to visit family, why she suddenly needed space. She had cleared the stage for her double life. By morning, I was done. When she asked for water, I gave it. When she looked at me with hazy eyes, I stayed calm. But the moment I mentioned Mariah, the mask fell. Her face paled. Her excuses crumbled. And finally, she confessed. The illusion of our life shattered. But in that moment, I felt something unexpected. Freedom. The morning after the wedding was a turning point I'll never forget. Natalie, groggy and hungover, shuffled through the kitchen looking for water, completely unaware that I had spent the entire night scrolling through her messages with Mariah, each one a stab in the back. I kept my voice steady as I handed her the glass, letting her recover a little before I asked the question that would change everything. So, who's Mariah? The moment the name left my mouth, her expression changed. Her confusion didn't last long, it quickly melted into panic. She stammered something about deleting everything, then caught herself, realizing she'd already given away the truth. My silence spoke volumes. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to shame her. The damage was done, and we both knew it. Eventually, the confession came. She admitted to everything, the messages, the meetings, the fact that it had all happened under my roof, often when I was away with our daughter. I felt sick, like the air had been sucked out of the room. All those beautiful memories, the joy of building a life together, the belief that I had finally found someone genuine, they turned to dust in an instant. But I didn't let her see me break. I simply told her to pack her things and leave. She cried, she pleaded, but I was unmoved. Some betrayals go beyond forgiveness, and this was one of them. Angela, our daughter, stayed with me. Natalie had no stable place to go, and after everything, I couldn't bear the thought of her taking our child into that chaos. The days after the divorce were heavy. The house felt empty, even though I had my daughter with me. Every corner reminded me of what had been lost, of the lies that had once lived there. But slowly, I began to rebuild, not just the space, but myself. Angela gave me purpose. Her laughter, her innocence, her need for me. It anchored me. My father saw how drained I was, how the betrayal had hollowed me out. Without asking, he gifted us a trip to a seaside resort, a fresh environment, far from the pain. I didn't expect much from it, but that trip became the beginning of our healing. Walking the beach with my daughter, feeling the sun on our faces, laughing freely for the first time in what felt like years, it reminded me that life wasn't over. In fact, something new was just beginning. We came back stronger. I reorganized our home, not just physically, but emotionally. It became a place of warmth again, filled with honest love, not the illusion I'd clung to before. The road to healing wasn't fast, but it was real. And most importantly, I no longer felt broken. I had my daughter. I had my peace. And I had the strength to move forward with dignity, knowing that the worst was behind us. The pain of betrayal lingers in subtle ways. Even after the tears dry, the suitcase is packed, and the signatures are inked on the divorce papers, the emotional scars remain. But in those scars, I found something I never expected: wisdom. Natalie's betrayal wasn't just a personal failure between two people. It was a mirror, forcing me to face truths I'd ignored for years. I had spent so much time trying to be the perfect partner, the provider, the protector, the calm one, that I lost sight of something crucial: my own boundaries. I excused red flags, rationalized distance, and accepted secrecy under the belief that love required sacrifice. But love, real love, never demands you sacrifice your self-respect. The messages, the affair, the lies, yes, they broke me at first. But they also cracked open the illusion I had built around Natalie and around what I thought our marriage was. Once that illusion shattered, the clarity that followed was life-changing. I realized that I had been living for someone else's approval, trying to secure loyalty from someone who never valued it in the first place. That shift in perspective didn't just change how I saw her, it changed how I saw myself. One of the hardest truths I had to accept was that betrayal doesn't always look like what you expect. Sometimes it hides behind soft words, kind gestures, and temporary affection. Sometimes it coexists with parenting, shared meals, and I love you texts. It creeps in slowly, taking root while you're too tired or too trusting to notice. But once it's exposed, you can never unsee it. And that's where the healing begins, not when you forgive them, but when you forgive yourself for not seeing it sooner. Raising Angela alone became more than just a responsibility, it became my redemption. Each day I showed up for her, I was also showing up for the part of me that had once been overlooked. I stopped doubting myself, stopped walking on eggshells, and stopped fearing abandonment. Because when you survive betrayal and choose to rise anyway, you come back not bitter, but better. Not because of what they did to you, but because of how you rebuilt yourself after they were gone. I now live with a different kind of strength, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet resilience that comes from knowing who you are, what you deserve, and what you will never tolerate again. I no longer chase love. I let it grow naturally, if it's ever meant to come again. But most importantly, I no longer ignore my instincts. If something feels off, I listen. If someone tries to dim my light, I walk away. Because I've learned that peace of mind is worth more than any romantic fantasy. And after everything I've lost, that peace, hard-earned and sacred, is something I'll never trade again. As we age, we learn that not all wounds are visible. Some of the deepest ones come from betrayal by those we trusted most. The story of a man who gave everything to love, only to be deceived by the very person he built his life around, is more than a tale of heartbreak. It's a reminder that even in our most painful moments, we can find clarity, growth, and self-respect. One of the most important lessons in later life is this: peace is more valuable than companionship that brings confusion or emotional harm. When someone repeatedly dismisses your worth, lies to your face, or erodes your trust, love is no longer love, it becomes a form of quiet suffering. And no one deserves to live in emotional silence just to keep a relationship intact. This story reminds us that it's never too late to protect your dignity, to rebuild your life around honesty, and to surround yourself with people who uplift your spirit. Whether it's choosing solitude over chaos or walking away from betrayal with your head held high, these decisions define your legacy. Because at any age, true love starts with self-respect.